Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, welcome to Bucharest. My name is Madalina Turza. I'm State Councillor at the Chancellery of the Prime Minister of Romania. I'm the Strategic Coordinator of the Humanitarian Assistance in Romania. I would like to thank you very much for taking your time and making this effort to travel to Romania, especially knowing how busy are these days and how busy is your schedule. Dear partners, we all have traveled a long and challenging way until this moment. Since the beginning of the unjustified and unprovoked war in Ukraine, all the European states have mobilized themselves, invested time, effort, and resources to respond to the largest humanitarian situation we have faced and to stand with Ukraine. After more than 6 months from the day one of the crisis, the time has come to take a look and to look towards medium and long-term perspective. The world, as we know, has changed. And to this end, this requires our commitment towards the future we are all called to shape, and also from the perspective of social and integration measures that we are going or planning to take for both our people, our societies, and for the refugees that we are hosting now. We have invited you here to Bucharest to start an honest and open dialogue on integration and inclusion of refugees. I would also like to invite you to a courageous conversation and to share your thoughts and your amazing experience that you have in your own countries. And I'd like you to consider this gathering as a safe and friendly space where we can lay the foundations for a common vision towards refugee integration. I won't keep this conversation at this point very long. I just want to thank you again. I'm so very overwhelmed and grateful that you are all here. And I would like to introduce you, my colleagues here, and to give the floor to Ms. Cătălina Galer, Counselor of State at the Romanian Presidential Administration, who will deliver the message of the Romanian President, Klaus Iohannis. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Thank you, Madalina, very much. Dear delegates, distinguished guests, Your Excellencies, I'm really honored to present you the message of His Excellency, Mr. Klaus Iohannis, the President of Romania. Since February 24th, with the invasion of Ukraine by the Russian Federation, we are witnessing terrible atrocities that no one imagined ever taking place on the European continent. Houses, schools, and hospitals have been damaged beyond repair. Entire cities have been destroyed, and a huge number of innocent civilians have lost their lives. At the same time, several million others have been forced to flee their country in search of safety and protection. From the first day of this unjust and illegal war, Europe had set an example for the entire world with its overwhelming display of humanity and solidarity. European countries have opened their borders to the Ukrainian people, keeping them safe from the Russian aggression, and provided much-needed support. Romania was no exception, as its people have wholeheartedly welcomed their neighbors into their homes, now hosting almost 90,000 people, safe from the dangers looming over Ukraine. Day and night, our authorities, together with different organizations and an impressive numbers of volunteers, have been present at the border crossing points, offering support to all the people that were seeking refuge from the war. I strongly believe that in these difficult times, it is of utmost importance that Europe stands united while facing such complex challenges. I welcome the initiative of the Romanian government to organize the Bucharest Forum, which not only reaffirms but also strengthens our commitment in supporting Ukraine. The European Union wishes for an independent, democratic, and European Ukraine. However, as we continue to support Ukraine on its path toward restoring peace, we need to acknowledge that there is no predicting as to when this unprovoked war will end. Thus, we need to shift our perspective on refugee support mechanism from a temporary approach on a medium and long-term one. Romania has already launched at the end of July its national plan of measures for the protection and inclusion of displaced persons from Ukraine and beneficiaries of temporary protection, which addresses multiple intervention areas. The inclusion of refugees in the society of the host countries is a complex process with various challenges, which requires coordinated and sustained efforts from all the actors involved, central and local authorities, civil society, international organizations, as well as the business community and individual citizens. We must ensure that Ukrainian refugees are protected and receive all the support they need, regardless of the member state they currently find themselves in. Therefore, our governments, the civil society, and the international organizations need to act together in identifying potential or existing barriers and hurdles that the displaced person might face and sharing knowledge and good practice in order to address them. Providing access to public goods and services in a non-discriminatory manner is an essential precondition, along with including refugees in the public healthcare systems, the educational systems, and the labor market, as well as providing housing opportunities. This requires legal changes and huge financial commitments, which need to be shared in the European community. We need to ensure that the future of the young generations of Ukrainians is not threatened during this period. Providing access to quality, inclusive education for the children and youth is a prerequisite in safeguarding their development. Overcoming the language barriers is one of the first steps that needs to be taken in order to facilitate their inclusion and integration. By providing the necessary means for refugees to learn the language of the host countries, they can better adapt to the new environment, enabling their active participation in the social, economic, and cultural life. In the long term, this will enhance European cohesion and help in building a European identity. Through the programs carried out, we must offer refugees opportunities to further develop themselves and become self-sufficient without depending on the support provided by the authorities of the host countries. Refugees can bring substantial value to their host communities by providing workforce and expertise in different fields. Thus, we need to encourage the private sector to be open to this opportunity while ensuring that the refugees have access to all the instruments they need in order to overcome unemployment as well as underemployment. One important aspect in this matter is the recognition of their diplomas and qualifications, as well as granting them access to lifelong learning opportunities within all types of academic or professional routes. At the same time, the mechanisms for fighting undeclared or illegal work must be strengthened as a preventive measure against the risk of exploitation of human trafficking, considering that a large part of the displaced persons from Ukraine are vulnerable categories such as women, children, and elderly. A particularly important aspect is that all the processes and decisions concerning refugees are transparent and effectively communicated in order for them to gain trust in the authorities of the countries where they are taking refuge during the war, while feeling protected and safe. I reiterate the fact that Romania will continue to stand with Ukraine and its brave people, offering them full support during their stay, as well as the opportunity to rebuild their lives in our country. As Ukrainians continue to fight for their sovereignty, freedom, and democracy, we must continue our joint tireless efforts to protect their families and loved ones who were forced to leave their homes behind for over 6 months now. I'm certain that together you will identify the best course of action for the successful integration of the Ukrainian refugees in our societies, allowing them to continue their lives in a safe environment until they will be able to return to their home country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Councillor. It was an honor to have you here and to have the message of the President of Romania. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Mircea Abrudan, who is the Chancellor Chief of the Prime Minister Chancellery, and also conveying the many apologies of the Prime Minister of Romania, Mr. Nicolae Ionel Ciucă, who had to convene an emergency government meeting at this time. But Mr. Chief Chancellor Mircea Abrudan will deliver his message, and he ensures you the Prime Minister of his highest consideration, and definitely we will have a moment to share a conversation with him. Thank you, Mr. Abrudan.
Thank you very much, Madalina. Good morning, everyone. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for participating in this very important event organized by the Government of Romania. Please allow me to present the message of our Prime Minister. It is a great pleasure for me and Romania to host you here for this first Bucharest Forum. I believe gathering the European countries on the topic of integration and inclusion of Ukrainian refugees is both timely and relevant. Timely, as we are 6 months after the start of the war and without a significant hope of seeing its end very soon. Relevant, because for us, as a country receiving refugees, we need to move into the next phase of integration and inclusion for the benefits both our societies and the refugees themselves. Beyond the emergency response led by us, European states, the frontline countries, their international partners and civil society, there is an increasing need to further address the medium and long-term challenges of the Ukrainian refugee flux in a tailored and coordinated manner across Europe. We here in Romania acknowledged early on that emergency response will not be enough and that we need to invest in meaningful policy measures to enable the Ukrainian refugees to integrate so that they can take an active role and shape their future with the protection of Romania. Towards this end, we now have a comprehensive national plan of action that provides the legal, institutional, and financial commitments and responsibilities of Romania to ensure a proactive realization of the refugees' rights to health, education, labor, housing, and protection of children and vulnerable groups. It is also important to acknowledge that many host communities who have generously welcomed refugees need support, and if we want to manage the refugees' influx well, services and development need to benefit both refugees and host communities to bring sustainable results and social cohesion. I am sure that you also face similar challenges and that you have invested substantial efforts in your countries to address the refugee situation. However, as you probably already know, some of these challenges go beyond national borders. In this context, it is our hope that the Bucharest Forum will serve as the first foundation for a common European political platform for dialogue and coordination on this pressing issue that we can only tackle together. I wish you all the best of luck with this forum. Thank you all for making the effort to come to Bucharest, and I would also like to give a special thank to Madalina Turza and her team for her tireless efforts in coordinating Romania's refugee response and for taking the initiative for this forum and bringing it towards realization. Thank you very much.